You've built the life you thought would bring peace. You did what they told you. You achieved, acquired, performed. You filled the checklist, the home, the partner, the goals that once felt distant. And yet, late at night, in that hush before sleep, or in the stillness between distractions, something stirs, a whisper you can't silence, a weightless ache, not sharp, but deep, a quiet longing that asks, is this it? There's no shame in it, no flaw in your character. This feeling of incompleteness is not a failure. It's a signpost, a sacred invitation. If these words feel like a reflection of something you've quietly known, this space is here for you. Feel free to subscribe and come back when the world gets loud. We'll be here, in the stillness. Because what you're feeling is not uncommon. It's not rare. In fact, it may be the most universal experience in modern life. To have it all, and yet feel a soft, persistent emptiness curling behind the things you chased. You may ask yourself, why do I feel this way when nothing is wrong? Why do I quietly grieve something I can't even name? That question is not a curse. It is your first step inward. Because what you think is missing might not be out there. It may not be more success, more love, more freedom. What's missing might be you. Not the version of you who performs well, not the one who keeps up with the story, but the one underneath, the one before the story even began. You see, the reason you feel incomplete, even when you have everything, is because so much of what you've gathered was never truly yours to begin with. From the moment you were small, you were taught what to want, taught who to be. The world offered roles, not truth. Masks, not mirrors. It said, be good, be successful, be liked, be enough. But no one told you how to just, and so you performed. You built an identity on top of a wound. You tried to earn worth in a world that never questioned the lie that it had to be earned. The applause felt good, for a while. The milestones, the victories, they were real, but they never touched the part of you that needed love the most. The child inside who wasn't seeking success, just safety, just presence, just to be held in the truth of their being, without needing to prove a thing. But that child got buried, not out of neglect, but out of survival. You became what the world would accept, and now you wonder why it still feels like something's missing. It's because you have built a life around the surface of things, not by choice, but by inheritance. We live in a culture of noise, of striving, a culture that teaches us to chase what we already are. It rewards the mask. It fears the silence. And so, we forget that peace was never something to be found. It was something to be remembered. Even now, if you stop, if you truly stop, you might sense it, a presence behind your thoughts, a stillness beneath the seeking, a silent, unwavering witness that has never once doubted your worth. That is you, not the voice in your head, but the awareness hearing it, not the self you project, but the self that watches quietly when everything falls away. And maybe that's why you feel incomplete, because you've mistaken the voice for the truth, the mask for the face, applause for the love. You've searched for home in the arms of approval, but never asked who it is that longs to be seen. When you begin to listen to that longing, not fix it, not solve it, but simply listen, you will notice it isn't asking for more, it is asking for you, your own return, not to a better version of yourself, but to the you that was never broken to begin with. You don't need to escape your life. You don't need to burn it down. You only need to remember what part of you built it, and whether that part was rooted in love or in fear. Because no amount of having can quiet the fear of being unworthy. No relationship, no title, no amount of control can satisfy a self built on rejection. But when you meet that fear with compassion, when you dare to sit with the ache, without running, without numbing, you begin to see it differently. You begin to see that the feeling of emptiness is not a flaw to be fixed. It's a doorway, a sacred threshold. It means your soul is waking up. It means the old story is no longer enough. And that's not the end. That's the beginning. You may find yourself wondering, if I am not this life I've built, then what am I? But maybe that question itself is too sharp, too urgent. The soul doesn't speak in conclusions. It speaks in quiet realizations, in subtle shifts beneath the surface, in that unexplainable feeling when something false begins to fall away, and you no longer rush to catch it. It's not that your career, your home, your relationships are meaningless. It's that when they become the foundation of who you are, they crumble under the weight of expectation. They were never meant to define you, only to reflect you. But how can anything reflect your truth if you've never sat long enough in silence to remember what it is? This world teaches us to move fast, to build faster, to gather endlessly. But no one teaches us how to stop, to sit, to grieve the selves we've lost, trying to be lovable, to meet the quiet child within who just wanted to be seen. When you pause, truly pause, you might meet that part of you, not in dramatic epiphany, but in the hush of ordinary moments, in the stillness of morning light, in the breath between two thoughts, in the tears that rise for no clear reason. That is the soul's language, not words, not goals, but feeling. You've been conditioned to override your feeling, to explain it away, to turn it into something productive. But not everything that aches needs to be healed. Some pain is not a sign of brokenness. Some pain is memory. And memory, when felt without resistance, can become release. So often the feeling of incompleteness isn't about what's missing now, but about what was missed long ago. The moments you needed presence and got performance. The moments you needed tenderness and got instruction. The moments you cried and were told to be strong. That child didn't disappear. They just went silent. And now, through your adult longing, they whisper again. Not to punish you, but to be found. This is the real work. Not changing your life, but letting your life become honest. To hold the questions without rushing toward answers. To let the ache be seen, not hidden, not fixed, just. Because maybe what hurts is not that you are alone, but that you've abandoned yourself for a life that looked good from the outside. You became what they needed, but who became what you needed? It's a sacred kind of mourning, this return to self. It asks you to let go of false certainty, to unlearn the lie that worth must be earned. And in that emptying, a deeper truth begins to emerge, one not spoken, but remembered, that you are already whole, even with the ache, even with the questions, even with the parts you still struggle to love. Because what if wholeness was never about perfection, but about presence? Not about being everything, but about being here. Can you feel that? Right now, as you breathe, as you listen, as you sit in the quiet gravity of these words, there's a part of you that is not lost. A part untouched by time, untouched by fear, unimpressed by success. That part has been here all along, waiting, watching, loving you without condition. It's the part of you that never needed to be better, that never compared, that never performed. And the reason you feel incomplete is because you've lived too far from that part for too long. You've called it names, called it weakness, sadness, laziness. But what if it's not any of those things? What if it's simply your soul, tired of pretending to be someone else? You've tried everything the world suggested. You've climbed, conquered, collected. And still, this hollow ache remains. Because what you seek cannot be given by the world. It must be remembered within. And remembering is not an action. It's a surrender. It's the gentle falling away of everything that was never truly yours. The labels, the roles, the identities you wore like armor. You are not your productivity. You are not your trauma. You are not your image. You are not the voice in your head that says you're not enough. You are the stillness behind it, the awareness beneath it, and that awareness is not incomplete. It never has been. So perhaps, instead of trying to fill the emptiness, you can begin to sit beside it. Like an old friend, like a child who's been waiting to be noticed, like a silence that's not empty, but sacred. You don't need to rush this. There is no deadline to your becoming. The soul unfolds slowly, like a flower in spring, opening petal by petal, trusting the light. And even when the world forgets you, this part of you never will. The truth is, you've never been broken, only buried. And the feeling of incompleteness is the call to come home. There is something sacred about the space between longing and fulfillment. Something most of us try to rush past. But that space, that ache, it holds a quiet wisdom. It shows you everything you've ever used to run from yourself. All the distractions, the numbing, the chasing, the constant reaching for something, anything that will quiet the feeling that something is off. But what if nothing is off? What if the ache isn't a problem but a portal? A doorway into the parts of you that have waited patiently through years of pretending, pleasing, performing. A door you were always meant to walk through, not escape from. You may not even know what it is you're yearning for, but you feel it. In the restlessness after achievement, in the silence after celebration, in the quiet moment when the noise fades and the questions return. That subtle sense that something is still missing. But what's missing isn't a thing. It's not a goal. It's not a person. It's not a breakthrough. It's presence. A felt connection to the truth of your being, without all the layers that say you need to be more. We are taught to fill emptiness with doing, to solve sadness with answers, to drown longing with distraction. But the soul doesn't speak in solutions. It speaks in symbols, in energy, in the soft pull of a tear with no story, in the subtle release when you finally stop pretending you're fine. The soul says, come closer, not to the world, but to yourself. Come closer, it says, to what you've buried, to what you've forgotten, to the sacred wound you've mistaken for a flaw. That wound is not where you're broken. It's where your light was hidden. You see, you were never meant to chase completion out there. Because out there was never home. Out there was the reflection. But the mirror cannot show you what you refuse to feel. You must return to your breath, to your heart, to the you that exists before thought. That you doesn't strive. It doesn't hustle to be worthy. It doesn't wear the mask of I'm fine when it's quietly unraveling inside. That you is raw and honest and whole in a way the world forgot how to honor. When you remember that part, you don't become someone new. You return to someone ancient. The part of you that watched the stars as a child and didn't need to name them to be moved. The part that sat in silence and felt, deep in the bones, that something more was here. Not to be found, but to be known. That knowing doesn't speak in words. It lives in the space between them, in the breath, in the stillness, in the moment you stop trying to fix your sadness and start listening to it. Because sadness has a voice, so does emptiness, so does silence, but they whisper. And if you're always moving, you'll miss what they're trying to show you. You'll miss the sacred truth that emptiness is not the absence of something, it's the presence of something deeper, asking to be felt. It's the shedding of what was never you, the old roles, the striving, the image, the borrowed beliefs about what life is supposed to look like. You carry so much that was never yours, expectations that weren't born from your soul, dreams handed down by others, definitions of success that never fit. And each time you reach the goal and still feel hollow, a part of you is begging to be heard. Not because you did it wrong, but because it's time to remember what wholeness actually means. It doesn't mean always being happy. It doesn't mean being healed, enlightened, or perfect. It means being honest with what you feel, with what you need, with what you are no longer willing to pretend. That honesty is the first step to freedom, because the truth will keep whispering in your anxiety, in your restlessness, in your quiet sadness that seems to come from nowhere. But it's not from nowhere. It's from within. It's from the version of you that wants to live without armor, without pretending, without chasing. That version of you is still here, still breathing, still waiting for your return. You don't have to abandon everything to find it. You only have to be willing to sit with yourself without turning away, to be still long enough to hear the voice beneath the noise, to feel what you've been avoiding, to touch the grief that's wrapped in layers of distraction. Because grief, when welcomed, becomes grace. And in that grace, you may start to see you were never incomplete. You were just disconnected from the truth that you are enough, even in your emptiness. That nothing needs to be added for your soul to be whole. That the ache you feel is not a flaw. It's a compass, and it's pointing you home. There's a moment when you've searched long enough, when you've asked all the questions, when you've stood at the edge of every dream you once thought would save you, and you finally whisper, "I don't know," not in despair, but in surrender. Because I don't know is the beginning of truth. The soft unraveling of every illusion that said you had to become something, earn something, prove something. In that space, the space where everything false begins to fall away, you may not find answers, but you will find something far more sacred. A quiet presence, a gentle awareness, a home you didn't know you were still carrying. And maybe that's all wholeness ever was. Not something to reach, but something to stop running from. You were never meant to have it all. You were meant to feel it all. The joy, the ache, the longing, the love, the emptiness, the silence, the mystery. Because the soul is not a project. It's a presence, and you don't become whole by fixing yourself. You become whole by being with yourself as you are, even when you're tired, even when you're lost, even when the voice inside says, you should be somewhere else by now. You're not late. You're not broken. You're not behind. You are here, and here is sacred. There is no arrival more powerful than the one where you finally sit with what is, without trying to escape it. When you stop needing life to be different in order to feel okay, you begin to touch a peace that doesn't come and go, a peace that's not tied to your circumstances, a peace that is simply the end of resistance. And in that stillness, you may begin to feel something unexpected. Not elation, not excitement, but a deep, quiet relief. Relief that you don't need to perform anymore, that your worth has never depended on your image, that even in your confusion, you are held, that even in your sorrow, you are seen. You've spent so much of your life trying to be someone the world would love. But what if the real path is learning to love the one you already are? To turn inward, not in judgment, but in reverence. To place your hand on your own heart, not to control it, but to listen, to say, I'm here now.
I may not know where I'm going,
but I'm no longer abandoning myself. There is courage in that. Not loud, heroic courage, but the quiet kind. The kind that sits in silence and lets the ache be what it is, without trying to name it. The kind that doesn't need to fix the wound, to love the one who carries it. You've searched long enough. You've gathered enough. And if you still feel incomplete, maybe it's because it was never about gaining, but about returning. Returning to the stillness, to the breath, to the simple miracle of being here as you are in this moment. No mask, no striving, just this breath, this silence, this you. Maybe wholeness doesn't arrive like thunder. Maybe it arrives like dusk, soft, gradual, almost unnoticeable, until suddenly everything is covered in light. Not a light that blinds, but a light that reveals. And when it does, you'll see that you were never truly empty, only waiting, only remembering. So let yourself remember, let yourself rest, let yourself be. And if the world gets loud again, as it always does, you can return here, to this stillness, to this space, to the quiet truth beneath every longing. You are not incomplete. You are the presence that never left. You are the love that never stopped waiting. You are the light behind the ache. You are home. Welcome back.